And on today's show, how family foundations can create philanthropy for the community and family jobs. Part 3 of this week's series on the end of the year charitable giving strategies for 2014. With top producers Mike Kilborn, CLU CHFC, and Rob Odell, CFP. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Innsmark, Life Specs, and Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Welcome to the show, Rob, Mike. Hi. Again, boy, I'm really, this whole end of the year, I'm going to have you guys back during the year because we're giving guys 2 weeks to figure this out. We probably need to go to another place. We've talked about this in the generic on family foundations and donor advisor funds and small, but we're going to kind of break this out. Why don't you walk me through family foundations? And I like the idea because, people say, well, it creates charity. It also creates jobs. Maybe I want to make sure my child has a job, right? I mean, this could be employment. Is that right?
Absolutely. In fact, I had a client who, he was kind of angry with his daughter for not being the best she could be. And so essentially he said he was kind of disinheriting her. And I didn't quite understand that because he was worth several $1 million. He said, what I'm really going to do is at my death, everything's going to go to my family foundation, but my daughter's going to be in charge of it, so to speak. And so she'll have a source of income and she'll be doing very good things in her life where right now he wasn't so sure she was doing those things.
That could be a big impetus for somebody to start this. But now this takes some money.
It takes money to set up. Absolutely.
This is some serious bureaucracy here at the front end.
Because in essence, you're setting up a business, right, a corporation, and you're applying for the 501c3 charitable. So it takes some time and money to set up. And there needs to be a commitment to charity for this family to take a part of it. It shouldn't be just a tax.
It's an ongoing issue.
It's ongoing.
I mean, there's
they
rules.
Keep minutes. They
right?
have meetings. They get together. Absolutely.
Well, you said it keeps minutes. They keep meeting, and it sounds like I thought it was private family foundation. That did not sound private to me.
No, it does not. They have to file what's called Form 990. It's the tax return. And it has all the information. Who contributed, where the money go, how's the money being invested. So it's a misnomer saying it's a private family foundation. It's a family foundation that has public information available.
Wow.
And there's so many benefits to it, as we're going to see here shortly.
Right. So establishing it, takes about 6 to 24 months to get it set up and going, to apply for that application process.
Oh, so you have to apply for this. This isn't just automatic.
Right. Right. It's quite a lengthy application process. It's usually a professional, a CPA attorney will help guide a family through. Must be operational in 5 years, because if you set it up and you don't start getting contributions coming into it, and it's more or less dry, all of a sudden it's nullified and it doesn't.
You have to start all over again.
Correct.
So you can actually, in your estate plan, can put a provision in to start the family foundation at your death, and then it gets created. It may take 6 to 24 months to get approved, but then it gets funded.
Right.
Now, what's one of the big target audiences for a private foundation like this, a family foundation?
Would be a high net worth family who wants control over their charitable giving. They want to be involved. Maybe they might have some funding assets that are not cash or appreciated securities. It might be a illiquid investment they want to move in there. They need to be careful on that, but there might be some unique investments that they want to put in there.
And someone that wants to keep their name alive for generations and keep their family realizing all the good they did in the past and want to do in the future. That's a key element.
So some of the philanthropy in America is really based on the perpetuation of my family brand.
Keeping your name alive is a big one.
That's a big one. Yes.
And also it trains 3rd, 4th, 5th, and beyond generations in the family way, if you will, as it relates to philanthropy. It gets the same values, and hopefully they can pass those values down. Now, there's a lot of famous family foundations in existence out there that the money how they're giving the money away today would have the founders doing RPMs in their grave because it was not intended for those type of causes. So you want to definitely have a family philosophy or charter to the family foundation so that keep the future heirs on track of where the initial intent was.
Okay, so control's a big issue. Family involvement is
Correct.
a big issue. And they can give greater variety of causes. So really, once the application's going, and I'm saying what my foundation is, generally, is it pretty easy to get this past, the application?
You have to fill it out properly, but it's a little bit more, it's not easy like filling out a mutual fund application. There's more to it. But one of the things is that it gives them a lot greater control over the giving, meaning if you have a donor advised fund, it's only going to 501c3 nonprofits. Here, they could give to the end recipient, a person who might be in need or qualify for a scholarship. They could give to that.
Now, real short, does it really matter in your thinking whether I'm using an S Corp or an LLC?
Not really.
So,
not for this context.
Not for this context,
right.
Okay.
But you need to set it up and then apply.
I still need an entity. Well, now let's talk about the tax aspects of this, because I noticed that it's 30% deduction on AGI for a private family foundation.
For cash.
For cash. I'm saying, and then what about the 20%? Is that for
That's for appreciated assets.
Okay,
You give that over.
so there's two different schools of assets that have two different tax caps.
Right.
Okay.
Right. And then within there on net investment income, there's an excise tax within the foundation that the foundation will pay on an annual basis. So that's the tax implications there. From an operational standpoint, there are a little set of rules that are a little bit different. They must file an annual tax return. They must have annual meetings with minutes, a board of directors. But Mike hit on this earlier in the previous program, is that they must give 5% away to charity on an annual basis. That's a requirement.
Every year, but I think I told you that maybe a smart move, if you don't want it to go out right away, is you could then create a donor-advised fund that we covered in the previous program. And now the donor-advised fund, once funded, you get your full deduction and you gave away what you're supposed to. But then basically the funds can be given out over a period of years.
And a couple of the disadvantages, it's very public, costly, high maintenance, and reduction in tax benefits in terms of a lower AGI you can go against, which is unlike the donor-advised funds.
We get back for the break. We're going to talk about donor-advised funds, maybe a little bit of yin and yang, a little comparison, right after the commercial. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Welcome back to our second segment. Of course, I'm with Rob Odell and Mike Kilborn. We're talking about family foundations in the first segment. Now we're going to shift gears to another alternative, or maybe even in tandem. I've heard you guys talk about this together, about donor-advised funds. Walk me through the donor-advised funds, and then let's, at the maybe the end, we'll give a little differences between the two.
Well, a donor-advised fund, as Mike likes to call it, a poor man's foundation. I think anyone who's charitably inclined should at least contemplate, or better yet, take out a donor-advised fund. Easy to set up, no expense to set up, very administrative easy because there's the end charity which offers the donor-advised funds is doing all the administration for you, greater income tax benefits, and it's very private. You can be anonymous in the donor-advised fund world.
Well, I want to go back to, but Mike, you call it the poor man's. Now, see, I keep thinking, when we're talking about charitable giving, I'm always thinking, we're in the wealthy to uber wealthy, the affluent of American. But you call this, and you like this, because almost anybody in the middle class can use this idea.
Absolutely. I started my first one with just a $10,000 so-called donation to the donor-advised fund, which I didn't have. I got my deduction immediately, but then the funds went out over a period of time, and it's a small amount of money and I think I shared with you in a previous program where when I gave stuff to charity, when I made a commitment to a charity, a check would come from the donor-advised fund, and right on it said the Kilborn Family Foundation. And I remember the check was a big check, and it looked like, as far as I knew, it was coming from my family foundation, and it was, but it was a donor-advised fund.
So you like this even for regular people?
Sure, it's
for regular people, absolutely.
It's
easy to set up, and they're offered. The question is, where do you go about sourcing
how do you find where you
Correct.
go?
Well, there's three main types of entities that offer them. They're all public charitable organizations, established charities, community foundations. They offer them there. Sometimes the various large organizations will offer them for their donor base. You can go to community foundations. They're around the country. They're available out there. There's also commercial foundations, such as Fidelity Gift Fund. But then the ones we like, Mike and I, are the independent foundations. Ones like American Endowment Foundation that do not have any affiliation with an investment company, with a cause, a mission, a charitable cause or mission, and truly neutral, allowing the donors to select the charities they want to give to.
Yeah, in fact, something I did mention earlier, with that type of foundation that you just mentioned, or the community foundation, the advisor who's managing the money and getting their fees for doing so, if they're going to transfer money to the donor-advised fund, they don't have to lose track of their ability to continue managing those funds, because they can do it through the independent organization.
So conceptually, here's how a donor-advised fund works. It starts with the end client, the donor, if you will. During their lifetime, they can give to the donor-advised fund, set one of these up. It becomes a sub-account of a larger foundation charitable organization. Segregated account, but it is a sub-account. So the moment that money transfers or securities transfer from their name irrevocably to the donor-advised fund, they receive an income tax deduction in the year that it happens. It can stay in here indefinitely, and they can advise, not control, advise what 501c3 charities the money can go to. And it does not have to go on an annual basis. Their discretion. Now, they do give up control when money goes to the donor advised fund, but the donor advised fund has, will likely do what they want.
Right.
Now this is like the middle person involved in this could be like a Schwab, as
Correct.
an example.
Yeah.
So the
Schwab
check's
does have-
being written to them with the intent that this is going to go to this charity. The donor, if I just heard you correctly, has, let's just say, limited control because he really doesn't have control once it's irrevocable. That's what I heard you say.
Correct.
So when but most communities, most charities are going to be listening to their donors.
Correct.
And so he's going to say, this is where I want it to go.
So if they say, I want to go to ABC charity and it goes to XYZ charity, do you think they'll give future contributions to that donor advised fund program?
No, they
Probably
won't.
not.
Probably not. So this kind of timeline and how this happens, he gives his advice, he gets to go where they want. And the reason I like this is because, again, low entry, I don't have to be uber
Correct.
wealthy, and this cost compared to the family foundation is exceedingly less.
Correct.
Right,
Yeah.
there's no required minimum payment that you have to distribute each year. That's a key.
Can you prepay on some of this?
Absolutely. In fact, I had a client a couple years ago who's a professional athlete. He signed a big bonus in November, signing bonus for a couple year contract extension. Very charitably inclined. He and his wife tithed quite a bit. So they prepaid a good chunk of that money in the year that they signed the contract into the donor advised fund, received the income tax deduction when they needed it most, and then they took their time in determining which organizations they want to benefit through their charitable giving.
And it could go on beyond them. So when they're dead, if there's still funds here, they can be given by the family members.
Okay, so now let's do the yin and the yang, so to speak. On my family, I see the low entry cost, bureaucracy seems way less. There's a little bit of, I got to pass it through a third party.
Correct.
But it sounds like most of the charities are going to be very soft to where you want this money to go and how it
Correct.
should be used.
Accommodating, yes.
Okay, they're accommodating. And then on my foundation, I have it's a larger timeline, 40, it could be two years.
2 years,
right?
yeah.
And the application has to be approved, and I have to, I think you were saying, Mike, I have to commit to the 5% every year.
Right.
So those are the issues.
And there needs to be a commitment to charity in the private foundation. I mean, this is something they're going to do.
Right.
So this often is a good place to start. And if they really take to this, the family, in terms of giving, getting other family members involved, then they can always go to the private family foundation and keep both.
Yeah, this is a training ground for younger.
Well, let's go back to you could do both.
Correct,
Right?
absolutely.
Family foundation and
Yes.
donor advisor funds.
Many people do.
So there's reasons to do that, and you can feather that back and forth.
Exactly.
Right? Well, that to me is pretty huge. How many, in your experience, both of you, as we close out the show, do most people do tandem then? Do they do both of them?
Well, most people do the donor
Donor
advised
advised
fund
fund.
first, but those who have private foundations often tack on a donor advised fund for tax planning as well as anonymity in giving.
Yeah, in fact, you could collapse a family foundation for reasons that may be needed
true.
into a donor advised fund. And by collapsing it, now you have something that's a lot simpler, and the family doesn't have to be too involved if they don't want to, or if just a few members can be involved.
And I don't have to be obligated to the 5%.
Right, and there's a 5%.
That's correct.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you tomorrow.